You wake up with your mouth open and nothing inside it but heat. Your tongue feels swollen, rough, cracked like old leather left in the sun. You try to swallow and your throat refuses. There's no saliva left to help you. Your chest pulls air in shallow, panicked draws, and every breath tastes of dust, stone, and something faintly rotten. Above you, the sky is white, not blue, burned, clean of color. You are standing at the bottom of a massive stone tank, its walls towering around you like a prison. Where water once rested against your calves, there is only mud, dark and slick, streaked with footprints and fingernail marks. Someone else has been here recently. Someone desperate. You look down at your hands and see that your nails are broken, split, rimmed with dried blood. You don't remember doing that. Your head throbs. Somewhere above, far away, a bird cries once and then goes silent. You realize with sudden animal clarity that if you do not find water soon, you will die here, in the shade of a structure built to save lives. Your legs shake as you climb the carved steps, each one worn smooth by centuries of bare feet. Your knees scrape stone. Your vision pulses at the edges, darkening, narrowing. You smell your own sweat, sharp, sour, heavy. It clings to you. The air inside the tank is cooler than the world above, but it carries no comfort. It smells of dampness without moisture, of old algae burned dry, of history that cannot help you now. You reach the top and look out across the settlement. Roofs sag under the sun. The ground is cracked open like skin split by fever. No smoke rises. No movement answers your stare. This place was built around water, shaped by it, protected by it, and now it is empty. You understand fully and finally that the systems have failed, and you are living inside the consequence. Before you go any further, before you step deeper into this world, take a breath, slow, careful, controlled. You are entering a simulation of survival. This is boring history for sleep, but the history itself was not boring to the people who lived it. If you want to continue surviving these pasts, if you want to return to places like this and leave again, you are invited to subscribe. Settle in. Lower your breathing. Let the darkness do its work. Now you go back. You wake before dawn, long before the heat becomes violent. The air is thin and cool, and for a moment you almost believe everything is fine. Your body is stiff from sleeping on hard ground. Your joints ache in quiet, manageable ways. You stretch slowly, listening to the faint sounds of the settlement coming alive. A cough behind a wall, bare feet scuffing dirt, a clay pot set down too hard. The sky is pale gray, no clouds. You notice that immediately, though you pretend not to. You always pretend not to. You step outside, and the earth feels cold under your soles. The smell of the morning is dry, dust, old smoke, stone that never fully cools. You can already feel the promise of heat waiting just beyond sunrise. You walk the familiar paths, narrow lanes worn into the village by generations of repetition. Walls lean inward, doorways are low. Everything here was built with effort and intention, shaped by hands that expected rain to come when it always had.
You pass the first collection basin near the houses. It is shallow, lined with stone, fed by channels cut into rooftops. You look inside out of habit. The bottom is visible. There is a thin film of green residue where water once stood. A few insects crawl sluggishly along the edge, confused by the absence of what should be there. You smell it. Stagnation without liquid, the ghost of water. Your stomach tightens, not yet with hunger, but with anticipation of it. As the sun rises, the heat arrives quickly, without transition. It presses against your skin, heavy and personal. Sweat forms almost immediately, sliding down your spine, gathering at the small of your back. You feel the weight of the day settling onto your shoulders. People move more slowly now. Voices are quieter. No one wastes energy on unnecessary motion. You notice the way everyone's eyes keep lifting toward the sky, scanning for signs that never appear. You walk toward the larger structures at the edge of the settlement, where the serious work of water management lives. Stone tanks carved deep into the earth, stepwells descending into darkness, channels that snake across the ground, carefully angled, patient, waiting. These are not decorations, they are survival made solid. You run your hand along a wall, feeling the heat already stored inside the stone. The surface is rough, uneven, chipped by time. You trust it. You have always trusted it. At the main tank, you stop and look down. The water level is lower than it should be. Not empty, not yet, but low enough that you notice the exposed steps, the darkened bands of stone that mark where water once rested safely. You swallow and feel a faint scrape in your throat. Someone nearby mutters a prayer under their breath. You don't look at them. You don't want to see fear reflected back at you. By midday, the heat is relentless. It feels as if the air itself is pressing down, making it harder to breathe. Your clothes cling to your body, stiff with salt. The sun glares off pale stone, forcing you to squint. You taste dust every time you open your mouth. The settlement smells of drying vegetation, of human bodies pushed too hard, of animals kept alive just barely. You hear fewer birds than you should. Even insects seem subdued, conserving themselves. Work continues because it has to. You clear channels, remove debris, check slopes and joints. You make sure nothing blocks the path rain will take when it arrives. You do this carefully, methodically, because doing it gives your hands purpose and keeps your thoughts from spiraling. The systems were designed for this, for uncertainty, for variation, for lean years. You repeat this to yourself, as if repetition might make it truer. In the afternoon, you rest in the shade of a wall. The stone radiates heat back into you, but it is better than standing in the open. Your head throbs dully. Your mouth is dry again. You ration water carefully, measuring each sip, feeling it slide down your throat and disappear without relief. You listen to the sounds around you. There is no laughter, no idle conversation, only movement, scraping, breathing, the occasional cough. The settlement is holding its breath.
As evening approaches, the light softens, but the heat does not fully release its grip. You walk the perimeter paths, checking the outer ponds. Cracks spread across their beds like veins. You kneel and press your palm against the earth. It is warm, brittle, unyielding. You smell dust and stone and the faint, unsettling sweetness of decay where plant matter has died too quickly. Your stomach tightens again, this time with a warning you recognize. When night finally comes, it brings only partial relief. The air cools slightly, but the ground continues to bleed heat upward. You lie down and stare at the sky. Stars are sharp and numerous, too numerous. A clear sky is beautiful, but it is also a sentence. Your body aches with fatigue that sleep does not fully touch. Your mind replays the sight of the lowering waterline, the exposed stone, the silence of the channels. As you drift toward sleep, you tell yourself that tomorrow will be different, that the clouds will gather, that the systems will do what they have always done. But somewhere deep inside, beneath habit and hope, a harder understanding has already taken root. The rain is late, and in a world built entirely around its arrival, lateness is the first sign of disaster. You wake with the taste of yesterday still in your mouth, dry and metallic, clinging to the back of your throat. Your body aches in new ways today. Your shoulders feel stiff, but your legs ache more, the muscles tight and trembling from yesterday's work hauling mud, clearing channels, checking tanks. The sun is already climbing. You feel it through your eyelids before you open them, a white-hot pressure pressing down, relentless. You rise slowly, careful not to twist your ankle on the uneven stone floor. Every movement makes a faint scrape of stone or clay. You are conscious of these sounds. They remind you that you are still alive, still capable, and still on the edge. You step outside into the narrow paths between houses. The air smells of dust and heat and stone, a dry, suffocating combination that sticks to your skin and coats your lungs. You can taste it as you breathe. You notice the smell of sweat on your own body, sharp and sour, almost stronger than the dust itself. A dog whimpers somewhere in the distance. You do not know if it is hungry or if it is just responding to the oppressive sun. Its sound makes your stomach tighten. You walk toward the first large tank of the settlement. The water is low, almost invisible in the glare of the morning sun. You kneel beside it, and the heat of the stone bites at your palms. You press your hands against the carved steps and feel the grooves worn smooth over centuries of use. The stone is dry. The algae that once clung to the edges is now brittle and pale. You taste dust again as it rises in faint clouds around you. The smell of old stone and dry algae mixes with the faint tang of sweat from your own body and something you cannot name, something metallic like rusted iron, faint but present. You look down and see your reflection fractured in the shallow, receding water. Your face is haggard, your eyes hollowed, your hands streaked with mud from yesterday's work. You begin moving again, following the channels that lead from the tank. They were engineered to carry water slowly, deliberately, so it would not overflow and waste itself. You run your hand along the smooth edges, feeling the faint cracks that have appeared over the years. The channels are dry. Your fingertips collect dust and sediment. You rub your hand on your thigh, but the feeling does not leave. You feel the weight of the years in these channels, the countless hands that built them, maintained them, trusted them, relied on them, and now they are failing. The settlement feels unnaturally still. You can hear your own breath, shallow and uneven. A faint wind stirs loose dust across the pathways. You hear the faint, hollow sound of a pot set down too hard somewhere nearby. A child cries somewhere far away, but the sound carries faintly through the dry air. You notice the absence of other sounds. There are no birds, no insects. Even the dogs have gone silent. Everything alive seems to be conserving itself, hiding its exhaustion. You approach the stepwell at the center of the village. It descends deep into the earth, carved from a single slab of stone, with steps worn smooth from generations of bare feet. The shadows inside are dark, almost black, but you can see enough to realize the water at the bottom has fallen even further since yesterday. You kneel at the edge, breathing shallowly. The smell of damp stone rises up from the well, but there is no moisture, only the faint memory of it clinging to the walls. You drop a small pebble in. It hits the bottom with a soft, wet thunk that sounds hollow in the dry air. You listen to the echo fade, counting the seconds. The echo seems to stretch forever. You feel as if the well itself is warning you, whispering in stone, warning you that the water is running out. You climb down into the stepwell carefully. The stone is cool at first, but the deeper you go, the warmer it feels, as though the earth itself is holding the heat of the sun. Dust rises in thin clouds with every step. The smell of stone and dust and faint rot grows stronger. You reach the bottom. Your hands press against the wet mud that lines the pool where water once rested. It is sticky, clinging to your skin. You scoop a small handful and bring it to your mouth, tasting it. The flavor is bitter and metallic, and it scratches your tongue, but it is enough to remind you that you are alive, that survival is still possible, that the earth is still offering something. You leave the stepwell and begin walking along the network of smaller tanks and rooftop catchments. Every system is empty, every channel dry. You notice the ingenuity in the construction, The sloped roofs, the careful grooves in stone, the ways water was guided into storage. But you also notice the failure. Nothing here can stop what is coming. You reach a small courtyard tank. Its edges are cracked. You touch the waterless surface and feel the heat radiate back at you. The smell is different here, sharper, acrid. You understand this tank is failing too. You close your eyes briefly, tasting dust and iron in your mouth, feeling sweat dry along your hairline. The heat of the day presses down harder now. Your shadow stretches long across the courtyard. You hear faint scraping noises behind you. A villager drags a stone along the path, trying not to disturb the fragile balance of dust that clings to everything. You notice the sound of your own heartbeat loud in your ears. It is not just your body reminding you that you are alive. It is a warning. The sun will not wait, and neither will thirst. You move to the edge of the settlement, where the largest reservoir sits. It was designed to hold water for the entire village, fed by channels from distant hills. You stand at the edge and look down. The surface is almost invisible. The sun reflects off the faint puddles left behind, shimmering weakly, as if the stone itself is mocking you. You lean over, pressing your hands into the cracked mud. Your palms leave imprints that will remain long after you are gone. You taste dust and earth again, swallowing hard to moisten your throat. The reservoir is too low. It will not last. You understand this fully, and the realization presses against your chest. You climb up onto a raised platform beside the reservoir and sit, watching the settlement. Dust drifts across the open spaces. The heat radiates from stone and soil. You notice the posture of the villagers, bent backs, careful, deliberate movements, silent conversations carried in glances and gestures. Even animals move slowly, conserving energy. You feel the weight of anticipation, the slow, simmering panic that has not yet become chaos. You recognize it. You understand that the survival of everyone here depends on a few fragile systems. You see them all failing. As night falls, the heat slowly recedes, but the settlement does not rest. You walk through the empty channels again, checking the smallest catchments, the rooftop gutters, the tiny earthen pots that might collect any drop of moisture. You touch the walls, the stone, the mud, and feel the imprint of countless generations. They built these systems to save lives, to survive drought, to endure the whims of the sky. You feel their presence here, in the grooves, in the cracks, in the faint whisper of water that once was. But you are alone in understanding that presence, alone in recognizing the fragility of what they left behind. Finally, you return to your sleeping place. The night is cooler, but smells of the day, dust, sweat, stone. You lie down and stare at the black sky. The stars are sharp and cruel. A faint wind stirs loose dust across your skin. You feel your body trembling, not from cold, but from anticipation. You know tomorrow will be the same. You know it will be worse. The channels will dry further, the reservoirs will recede, and the systems, once the lifeblood of the settlement, will demand more of you than you are ready to give. Sleep comes only reluctantly. You taste dust and iron as you drift in and out, hear the distant scrape of stone, the faint hum of a day spent surviving, and the quiet, unyielding knowledge that you are walking through a world built to endure and now failing around you. You wake to the sky empty of clouds. The sun strikes your eyelids through the narrow gap of the doorway, hot, insistent, relentless. You feel it pressing into your skull before your eyes even open. Your mouth tastes of iron and dust. You swallow and hear nothing but the scratch of your own throat. The air smells dry, stale, as though the world has been holding its breath all night. You rise slowly, body stiff, every joint complaining, and you notice immediately the faint vibrations of panic in the settlement. There are whispers, low and tense, like an animal warning. Even the wind carries the weight of worry today, hot and uneven, scraping against skin, through clothes, into your lungs. You walk toward the first large tank. Its surface no longer glimmers in faint puddles, but is cracked and crusted with mud. The stone edges are baked hot under the sun. You press a hand to the surface and feel the heat radiate back into your palm. There is no water, not enough, not even a thin layer. You trace the grooves of centuries-old channels, and each step, each scratch of your palm reminds you of what was supposed to be there. You are struck by the silence, the channels, the reservoirs, the catchments, all still, empty, waiting for a sky that refuses. The settlement holds its breath with them. You hear a distant shout. You do not react immediately, because shouting is rare here, a sign of extreme circumstance. You follow the sound across narrow streets. People move quickly but carefully, gestures tense, faces tight. You notice the first glances toward the sky, the first visible cracks in calm. The elders consult one another in low murmurs, hands pressed to chests or over mouths. They are keeping it together, but you can see the edges of panic fraying at their patience. You smell sweat and fear mixed together, heavy, sharp, tangible. You reach the stepwell at the settlement's center. Descending, you feel the stone hot against your bare feet, carrying the sun's weight downward. The water level is lower still than yesterday. You can see mud deposits high on the walls, dry and pale, and the remnants of what little algae had survived the sun's relentless baking. You lean over the edge and look down. A few liters at most wait at the bottom, barely enough to wet your lips, barely enough to sustain. You run your fingers through the sludge. It clings to you, thick, gritty, faintly foul. You taste a tiny bit. The bitter tang fills your mouth, scratches your tongue. You swallow slowly, knowing every drop counts. You climb out of the stepwell and follow the outer channels. Even the small rooftop-fed catchments are failing. You lift the lids, one by one, and find only dust, dry leaves, dead insects. You feel the heat radiating off stone and clay, as though the entire village has been turned into an oven. You taste the air, dust, earth, sun-baked residue. A metallic undertone lingers in your mouth. You can feel your heartbeat in your throat. The settlement stirs with more urgency now. Villagers move through the lanes, carrying small vessels of water, scraping the last bits from jars and tanks, measuring each ladle with obsessive care. You notice a woman in the distance, crouched beside a nearly empty tank, crying quietly. She is alone. She has been saving the last water for her child. You swallow hard. You know she will not have enough. You walk to the largest reservoir at the edge of the settlement. Its surface is cracked, dry, and uneven. A few shallow puddles shimmer weakly, a cruel reminder that water existed here once. You lean over the edge, pressing your hand into the sticky mud. The smell is sharp, acrid, bitter. You taste dust in the air. You notice faint footprints near the edge, smeared with mud, dried and cracked. Others have been here before you, desperate. You understand fully that the settlement is failing. Not everyone yet, not completely, but the systems are losing their battle with the sun, the heat, and the sky's refusal to give rain. You step back and walk along the walls. Every channel, every tank, every stepwell you pass carries the same message. The sky has abandoned you. The carefully constructed pathways that guided rain, captured it, stored it, have grown useless. You smell decay in the heat. You hear the scraping of tired feet, the whispered prayers, the hollow thuds of vessels dropped too hard. The village is quietly unraveling. You feel it in your chest, a slow, rising pressure of dread. By midday, the sun is almost unbearable. The stone radiates heat so intense you can feel it through the soles of your feet. You taste iron in your mouth again. Dust chokes every breath. Villagers have begun to argue quietly, voices low but tense, each word a spark. You witness the first rationing disputes, the first small fights over who gets the last water from a rooftop catchment. The sound is quiet, but it carries weight, like an alarm, muted, barely tolerable. Fear is spreading like wildfire through dry grass. You climb to a raised platform near the reservoir, surveying the settlement from above. The heat presses against your body. Dust dances in thin, pale columns across the courtyards. Your eyes trace the empty channels, the parched stepwells, the cracked tanks. Everything seems still, but you know it is not. Energy is moving just beneath the surface, restless, desperate, afraid. You feel your stomach tighten. Hunger is slow, creeping, not yet violent, but unmistakable. You notice your own hands shaking slightly, though you have no reason to believe they should. A bird cries somewhere. Its sound is sharp, unnatural, out of place. Then silence. You notice the absence of animals everywhere. Dogs, goats, chickens, all still, conserving themselves. Even insects crawl slowly, sparing energy. The village holds its breath along with them. You realize that survival will not be simple. The systems built by generations, these stone tanks and stepwells, cannot replace what the sky refuses to give. Night falls, and the air cools slightly, but not fully. You walk along the perimeter channels again, checking every small catchment, every clay jar, every depression in the stone. You touch mud and stone, dry, cracked, coarse against your palm. You taste dust and iron. Every step feels heavier than the last. The settlement is quiet now, but the quiet carries weight. It is not peace, it is anticipation. You lie down on the bare stone floor. Your body aches from exertion, from standing, from the heat. The sky above is clear, stars sharp and distant. You taste dust in your mouth again, and the dryness scratches your throat. You hear the faint sound of someone moving nearby, someone else, awake, restless, calculating their next move. You close your eyes and feel the pressure of anticipation settling in your chest. This is not simply the absence of rain. This is the first real sign of disaster. And you, awake in the dark, are already part of it. You wake before dawn, though the concept of morning feels meaningless now. The sky is pale and unbroken, a relentless sheet of white. You lie still for a moment, tasting dust in your mouth, swallowing it dry. Your tongue feels like it has been sanded raw. Your throat scratches with each breath. The heat presses against you, even here, before the sun has fully risen. You push yourself up and stand, muscles stiff, every joint aching. Your stomach churns faintly, a reminder that the last food you ate is already gone. Hunger presses against your chest in slow, insistent waves. You step into the courtyard and notice immediately the small movements of the settlement. Villagers move with careful deliberation, each one calculating how far, how fast, how much effort to expend. Even the children are smaller, their limbs thinner, their steps lighter, as if conserving what little energy they have left. You smell sweat, dust, and the faint, bitter tang of dried mud. The smell clings to everything: stone, clay, clothing, skin. There is no escape from it. Every breath brings it in, filling your lungs, coating your throat. You walk toward the stepwell. The stone is hot beneath your palms, and the steps that should descend into cool relief now radiate only dry heat. The water at the bottom is gone, replaced with thick, sticky mud. You press your hand into it. It clings to your skin, slippery and coarse, smelling faintly of rot and earth. A shallow scoop barely moistens your fingers. You taste it, bitter, metallic, and you feel a pang of nausea. You swallow and try to push it down. Survival is slow, deliberate, and filthy. You hear the first real cries today. They are muffled, as if coming from the depths of stone channels, from behind walls, from the sun-baked streets. You move toward them, following the sounds. A woman crouches beside a nearly empty clay tank, her face pressed to the edge, sobbing quietly. Her child sits beside her, small and still, eyes hollow. You notice a man nearby, scraping mud from a channel, his movements jerky, twitching, his skin dry and flaking. He looks at you and then away, unable or unwilling to speak. You smell him before you see him fully. Sweat, dust, fear, something faintly sour that makes your stomach tighten.
You continue walking through the settlement, checking each system. Tanks, stepwells, rooftop catchments, every one is failing. Channels run dry. Earthen pots that might have held water are cracked, baked, unusable. You taste dust and iron in the air. Your hands are streaked with mud, and it will not wash off today, not with the water that is left. You notice other villagers moving similarly, touching the stone, the clay, the mud. Everyone is searching for something, some last drop, some overlooked reservoir. Desperation hangs in the air like a living thing. The heat rises quickly, and the sun is merciless. You feel it on your back, on your neck, pressing down as if trying to squeeze moisture from your skin. Dust rises in pale clouds with each step. Your feet scrape stone and hardened earth. You notice your own heartbeat, loud in your chest, uneven, insistent. Hunger gnaws faintly at your stomach, thirst claws at your throat. The settlement moves slower now, everyone conserving energy, conserving hope. You reach the largest reservoir. Its edges are cracked, mud baked hard, water nowhere to be seen. You lean over and press your hand into the remaining sludge. It clings thickly, tasting bitter, metallic. You lift it to your mouth, feeling grit between your teeth. You swallow it anyway. Every small action counts. You notice faint footprints nearby, dried and smeared with mud. Others have come here before you, desperate, surviving on scraps. You know you are not alone in this. Survival is a contest now, slow, grim, inevitable. Voices begin to rise. They are low at first, muttered, quiet, then louder. Arguments over water, small fights over a ladle here, a puddle there. You hear a child cry. The sound is high and piercing. You want to help, but you know that even your own body is barely capable. You smell sweat and fear thickly now. The air tastes metallic, acrid. Dust scratches your throat with each inhalation. The settlement is unraveling slowly, almost imperceptibly, but unmistakably. You climb to a raised platform near the reservoir, surveying the settlement. The heat radiates off stone, soil, clay, skin. Villagers move cautiously, deliberately, eyes scanning channels and tanks, looking for any sign of water. You notice their postures, bent backs, careful jerky motions, cautious hands. Every step, every glance, every breath is a calculation. You feel it yourself, the slow weighing of energy, the need to ration effort, to conserve life. The sun dips toward the horizon, though it offers no real relief. Shadows lengthen, but the heat lingers, pressing into stone and bone alike. You check the smaller catchments again, scraping the bottoms, tasting mud, brushing grit from your lips. Hunger is sharper now, more insistent. You feel faint dizziness, a subtle trembling through your body. Fatigue and fear mingle indistinguishably. Night comes, cool enough to offer brief relief, but not enough to restore comfort.
You lie down, staring at the black sky. Stars pierce through the still, hot air. The settlement is quiet now, though the quiet is tense, anticipatory. You taste dust and iron in your mouth, feel the roughness of stone beneath you, hear the faint sound of someone moving in the distance. The channels, tanks, reservoirs, they all wait. The systems you once trusted are failing. The settlement is alive, yes, but fragile, and each person clings to the last threads of survival, knowing instinctively that the coming days will demand more than anyone is prepared to give. Sleep comes slowly, fitfully, weighed down by thirst, hunger, and the slow, gnawing understanding that the disaster has fully arrived. You taste dust in your mouth, hear the faint creak of drying wood, stones settling, channels cracking. You are awake in a world failing around you, and the night stretches long, heavy, and unrelenting.
You wake before sunrise, but the world feels heavier than the day before. Your body aches in ways you cannot name, joints stiff, muscles trembling from yesterday's exertion, your stomach hollow and tight. Dust tastes bitter in your mouth, your throat scratches with every breath. You push yourself to stand, legs weak beneath you, skin clammy even though the sun has not yet risen. You feel sweat pooling in small patches under your arms, along your back. Every movement is deliberate, calculated, slow. Energy is precious. Survival demands calculation now, above everything else. You step into the courtyard and notice the quiet panic that has begun to settle over the settlement. People move like shadows, careful, deliberate, conserving what little strength they have left. You smell dust, sweat, and something more, the sharp, bitter odor of fear. You taste it too, metallic and heavy at the back of your throat. The sun has not yet burned the day fully into the stone, but the heat presses already, insistent and relentless. You approach the first tank. The water level is lower than ever. You lean over, feeling the stone edges, the baked mud along the rim, the sticky residue that clings to your fingers. The tank is barely more than a shallow puddle. You scrape a small amount of sludge into your hand, tasting it. Bitter, metallic, gritty. It does not quench, does not satisfy, but it sustains, and that is all that matters now. You swallow slowly, wincing. Each swallow scratches your throat raw. You move along the channels. They are cracked, dry, useless. Dust swirls at your feet with each step. The sun rises higher, and the heat is unbearable. Sweat drips from your forehead into your eyes, stings, mixes with dust. Your lips are cracked. Your tongue feels like sandpaper. Every inhalation tastes of dirt, stone, iron, and the faint, sour tang of dried sweat. Hunger gnaws at your belly. Thirst claws at your throat. You feel the slow, insidious pull of fatigue pressing on every muscle. Voices rise in the settlement now, low and tense at first, then louder. Arguments erupt over the smallest containers of water. You hear a child crying, wailing softly, small and fragile against the oppressive heat. A woman presses her hands over her face, rocking slowly, muttering prayers that do not reach the sky. Men move quickly but cautiously, scraping the last bits of mud from shallow tanks, lifting vessels of sludge to sip sparingly. The settlement has become a slow choreography of desperation.
You find yourself near the largest reservoir. Its edges are cracked, baked hard by the sun. The mud at the bottom sticks to your hands when you try to collect it. You taste it, bitter, metallic. You swallow, and it scratches your throat raw, but you feel a faint sense of relief. You know it will not be enough. It never is. You watch shadows moving across the cracked surface, faint impressions of footsteps from others who have been here before you, scraping, searching, surviving. You feel their presence in the mud, in the stone, in the channels. By midday, the heat has become a physical weight pressing against your skin. Dust swirls in the air like smoke, rising from dry stone and earth. You feel dizzy, lightheaded, sweat running in rivers down your back, your chest tight, stomach a hollow, relentless ache. Hunger gnaws at your body with increasing insistence. You press your palms against your stomach to calm it, but it does not help. Each breath carries dust, iron, and the faint tang of sweat. Every step is heavier than the last. You return to a smaller channel, kneeling beside the remaining sludge. You scrape a small amount and hold it in your hands. You notice the grit under your fingernails, the heat radiating from the stone, the dryness that clings to your skin. You bring it to your mouth, tasting earth, mud, and iron. Your tongue scratches against grit, throat protests, but you swallow anyway. Survival is measured in small sips, in small scoops. You do not know if you will have the strength to reach the next reservoir, the next tank, the next chance to scrape mud and extract moisture. The settlement has grown quiet in some areas, louder in others. You hear arguments, soft cries, the scraping of feet against stone. You smell sweat and dust and something faintly sour that makes your stomach twist. Some villagers move slowly, dragging themselves along paths that were once familiar. You notice the hollowness in their eyes, the tremor in their hands, the way they clutch vessels of water as if they were precious relics. You feel your own body trembling now, weak, hot, dehydrated, hungry. You climb onto the raised platform beside the reservoir, surveying the settlement. The sun glints off cracked stone, empty channels, dry earth. Dust swirls in faint columns, shadows stretch long across courtyards. The village moves with deliberate slowness, conserving energy, conserving life. You notice a child barely standing, scraping a small pot along a channel, tasting the mud. You notice a man collapsed against a wall, face streaked with sweat and dust, eyes half closed. You notice a woman muttering, kneeling beside a tank, pressing her hands over her mouth. Desperation has taken root here. It grows. You feel it pressing into your chest.
Evening comes, though it brings no relief. The air cools slightly, but the stone retains heat. You taste dust again, iron and grit. You lie down on the bare ground, pressing your palms into stone. Hunger gnaws at your belly. Thirst scratches at your throat. Your body trembles from exertion, from heat, from lack of water, from the slow, grinding pressure of survival. You hear faint movement elsewhere in the settlement. Others are awake, scraping, searching, rationing, conserving. The channels, tanks, reservoirs, they wait, and so do you. Sleep comes reluctantly. You taste dust and iron in your mouth. You feel the weight of hunger pressing against every muscle, every joint. Your body aches in ways you cannot name. Your mind drifts uneasily between exhaustion and panic, between calculation and despair. You are awake in a world that refuses to sustain you fully, that demands more than you are capable of giving, and yet you are still alive. For now. You wake with your eyes half closed, the world trembling at the edges. Dust coats your tongue, scratches the back of your throat. Your body feels hollow, drained, a shell moving through heat and stone. The air tastes of iron and dried sweat, of clay baked by a sun that refuses mercy. Every breath feels like pulling grit into your lungs. Your stomach is a twisting void, gnawing at you with slow, deliberate persistence. Hunger is no longer just physical. It has grown into something heavier, sharper, pressing into your chest like a stone. You stumble toward the first reservoir. The edges of the tank radiate heat, the mud at the bottom baked hard and cracked. You scrape a small amount with your fingers, tasting the bitter sludge, the metallic tang and grit that scratches at your tongue. You swallow anyway. Survival is measured in these small, bitter sips, each one a thin thread holding you to life. As the sun rises, your vision begins to blur at the edges. Shadows stretch and warp across stone. You think you see movement in empty channels, something shifting just beyond sight. You blink. Nothing. Or is it? Your mind strains to reconcile thirst, hunger, exhaustion, and heat, and the settlement itself seems to warp under the weight of survival. The channels twist like veins. Tanks appear deeper than they should. The stone beneath your fingers pulses faintly, hot and unyielding. You walk slowly through the courtyard. A low wind stirs dust in pale columns. You notice figures moving in the distance. Villagers, perhaps, or phantoms. You call your name once, just to ground yourself, but no answer comes. The heat presses against you, the dryness scratches at your skin, and you realize with a jolt that your own breathing has become louder than the world. Your heartbeat thrums in your ears, your hands shake. You taste iron again, thicker this time, heavier. You climb the steps to the stepwell. It descends deeper than memory, stone darkened with centuries of use. Shadows cling to corners. Your hand brushes against the wall and you startle at the sensation. It feels almost alive, pulsing faintly beneath your fingers. You look down at the waterless bottom. Shapes move in the mud. Faces. Faces of those you know, blurred and distorted. They whisper something you cannot hear. You blink. They are gone. You taste dust in your mouth, iron and grit. Hunger and thirst have made your mind a mirror for the settlement's desperation.
You continue moving, following channels and pathways, but every turn reveals more hallucinations. You see figures crouched beside empty tanks, reaching for water that is not there. You hear children laughing faintly, echoes from some distant, impossible past. You swear the wind carries voices, warnings, prayers, threats. Each sound hits like a blade, slicing through your concentration. Your stomach twists painfully. Your legs feel hollow. You taste mud again, metallic and bitter. Each sip a reminder that survival is fragile, precarious. By midday, the sun presses down with unbearable weight. Dust swirls in columns across stone and earth. You see shadows flicker at impossible angles. Tanks you passed earlier appear nearer, then farther. Channels twist and bend in ways that are not possible. You try to steady yourself, pressing your hands into stone, tasting grit, dust, iron. You blink. The figures are closer now. Villagers, friends, strangers, but their faces are wrong, twisted. Their hands reach for water, for you, for something that you cannot name. You stagger back, taste dust and blood and sweat in your mouth. Voices rise across the settlement, at first low, murmured, but now louder. Faint fights break out over the last bits of water. You see a man collapse beside a channel, twitching, lips cracked, eyes half closed. You notice a child leaning against a wall, pale and trembling, muttering words that make no sense. You try to reach them, but the heat, the thirst, the exhaustion makes every step a battle. Every breath carries grit and iron. You taste the bitter sludge again. It is not enough, and you know it will never be enough. You climb onto a raised platform near the reservoir, trying to ground yourself, trying to make sense of the world. The sun reflects off cracked stone and empty channels. Shadows twist. You blink. You see hands reaching from mud. You see faces in stone, hollow and watching. Dust swirls at your feet. You smell sweat, fear, dust and something faintly metallic. Hunger gnaws at your stomach. Thirst scratches at your throat. Your hands tremble. Your legs quake. You are alive, but the world around you feels unreal, fluid, like it is bending and folding under the weight of suffering. Evening comes, faintly cooler but not forgiving. You lie down, taste dust and iron, and feel the tremor of your own body. Hunger has sharpened into a dull scream. Thirst is now an ache that claws at your throat with every breath. Shadows stretch unnaturally long. The settlement is quiet, but not peaceful. Movement in the dark, faint whispers, scraping of feet over stone, the hiss of wind over cracked earth. It all presses against you, suffocating, unyielding. Sleep comes in fits, uneasy, filled with visions of mud, water, and hollowed faces. You dream of channels twisting impossibly, of tanks overflowing and then vanishing. You taste dust and iron even in the brief moments of unconsciousness. Hunger gnaws, thirst scratches. Your mind swirls between reality and hallucination, between survival and the edge of collapse. The settlement waits, you wait, and in the dark, in the heat, in the dry stone, you know with absolute clarity that nothing here is certain, nothing here is safe, and survival is a slow, grinding, fragile thread.
You wake with your body trembling, not from cold, not from fear, but from exhaustion pressing into every joint, every muscle. Your mouth tastes of iron and dust, your tongue swollen and rough. You try to swallow, and your throat scratches, dry and raw. Sweat runs down your spine and pools under your arms. Each step you take feels like dragging your body through stone, earth, and heat. You are alive, but only barely. You step into the courtyard and immediately notice the changes. Shadows stretch longer than they should. Dust swirls in faint, ghostly spirals across the stone paths. Movement flickers at the edge of your vision. Someone or something shifting, gone before you can focus. The settlement feels thinner, emptier, almost fragile. A faint wind stirs, carrying with it the smell of sweat, dust, and the faintly sour tang of fear. You taste it in your mouth as well, metallic and bitter. You move toward the stepwell. The stone steps are hot beneath your hands, hot enough to blister your skin where you press against them. You descend, eyes straining in the dark. At the bottom, the waterless mud looks different today, darker, thicker. Shadows twist across it. Faces emerge in the mud, faces of friends, of neighbors, distorted and impossible. They reach toward you. You blink, they are gone. You feel a tightening in your chest, a slow, insistent pressure that makes every breath a fight. The settlement is alive with the quiet panic of the dying. You hear it first in the low, whimpering cries of children, then in the muttered prayers of women pressing their palms to the ground, then in the gasping, shallow breaths of men dragging themselves along empty channels. You smell sweat, fear, dust, and decay mixed together. Every breath carries grit into your lungs. Hunger has grown sharp, relentless. Thirst claws at your throat with every inhale. You are barely aware of your own steps, dragging, stumbling, moving as if through water. You notice a figure in the distance, a man collapsed beside a tank. His skin is pale, streaked with dirt and sweat. His lips are cracked. He trembles, muttering words you cannot hear. A faint whine escapes his throat. You approach, but before you can reach him, his body goes still. The sound of his shallow breaths ceases. You feel a jolt of recognition and horror. The settlement is claiming its first lives today. You taste dust and iron, bitter and sharp, and your stomach twists violently. You move along the channels,
checking the smaller catchments, scraping mud from tanks that hold nothing. Shadows flicker at the edge of your vision. You see figures crouched beside empty tanks, reaching for water that is not there. You hear faint whispers, impossible in their clarity, voices of those who are gone, voices of the living distorted by heat and thirst, voices that call your name. You blink, they vanish. You taste grit in your mouth again, feel the weight of sweat on your skin, the sting of sun on your shoulders. By midday, the sun presses down with unbearable intensity. Dust rises in thin columns around the settlement. Your vision blurs. Tanks that were once near appear farther away. Channels twist beneath your gaze. Figures move in impossible ways. You see a child kneeling at the edge of a tank, small hands scraping mud, face hollow. Then the child vanishes. You are alone. You are not alone. Every step, every breath, every glance threatens to unravel your mind. You climb to the raised platform beside the reservoir. The heat radiates from stone, mud, and earth. Shadows stretch impossibly long. The settlement moves slowly, conserving energy, conserving life, conserving hope. You notice a woman crouched beside an empty channel, her hands pressed over her mouth, trembling. You see a man dragging himself along a cracked stone path, falling at last to the ground, motionless. You feel the weight of death pressing in on the settlement. It is quiet, but the quiet is heavier than any sound. Evening arrives, offering slight relief from the sun, but no comfort. Dust swirls lazily. You lie down on the hard stone, tasting iron, grit, dust. Hunger gnaws relentlessly. Thirst scratches mercilessly. Your body trembles from exhaustion, heat, and the weight of witnessing the settlement unraveling. Every step, every breath, every heartbeat carries the knowledge that more lives will be claimed before this night ends. Sleep comes fitfully, interrupted by visions of mud and water, of hollow faces and twisted shadows. You dream of channels twisting impossibly, of tanks overflowing and vanishing, of voices calling you from nowhere. Hunger and thirst are sharpened into pain. Fear presses in with every pulse. You are awake in a world cracking around you, where survival is no longer guaranteed, and the settlement itself has become a ghost of what it once was.
You wake to silence, but it is not peace. The air is heavy with heat and dust, thick enough to choke you. Your mouth tastes like iron and dry clay, tongue swollen and cracked. Your throat protests with every swallow. Your stomach twists, hollow and aching, a gnawing emptiness that will not be satisfied. You rise, trembling, every joint stiff, every muscle taut with exhaustion. The world presses against you, hot and unyielding, dust rising in pale columns around every step. You stagger toward the first reservoir, the stones scorching beneath your hands. The mud at the bottom has dried into a thick crust, cracked and uneven. You press your fingers into it, feeling grit and hardness. You taste it anyway, bitter, metallic, coarse. Each swallow scratches your throat raw, but it sustains you just enough to keep moving. Hunger has sharpened into a relentless scream, thirst a constant clawing, and your body shudders under the combined weight of both. The settlement moves in slow, fractured patterns. Figures stumble along channels, some falling into dry mud, others collapsing against walls. Their faces are hollow, their eyes flicker with panic, hallucination, exhaustion. You see children crouched over empty vessels, scraping at nothing, whispering words that make no sense. You smell sweat, dust, and the faint, acrid stench of bodies pushed beyond endurance. Every breath tastes metallic, bitter, thick with grit. The sun beats down without mercy, the heat pressing through stone and earth alike. You move along the channels. Shadows twist at impossible angles. Tanks shimmer and warp in your vision, some closer than they should be, others further away. You blink and see figures kneeling beside empty reservoirs, hands outstretched, mouths open in silent screams. They vanish as you focus. Shapes move just beyond sight, your friends, your neighbors, some alive, some dead. You taste iron in your mouth again, thick and heavy. Hunger gnaws, thirst scratches relentlessly, your body trembles. By midday, the settlement is unrecognizable. Arguments rise into shouts over scraps of water. Small fights erupt beside empty tanks and channels. Children cry. Women whisper prayers that float into the heat and die. Men collapse where they fall, faces streaked with sweat, dust, and despair. You witness a neighbor clutch a vessel and collapse beside it, eyes rolling back, lips blue. You taste dust and iron in your mouth. You try to help, but your own body shakes, legs weak, throat dry, mind fraying at the edges. Death moves quietly, inexorably through the settlement. You climb onto the raised platform beside the reservoir, surveying the settlement. Shadows twist unnaturally, channels seem to writhe, tanks shimmer and disappear in your vision. Figures move, then vanish. Whispers echo through the dust, voices of the living, voices of the dead, voices that call your name from nowhere. Hunger and thirst gnaw, sharpen and twist your perception. You blink. You see a child kneeling in mud, scraping at an empty channel, then suddenly it is gone. You taste dust, grit, and iron again. Your stomach cramps violently.
Evening comes with only partial relief. The sun dips, but the stone and earth retain heat, radiating it back into your body. The settlement is quieter now, but the quiet is thick, oppressive, suffocating. You hear faint movements, scraping of feet over dry stone, whispered prayers, low murmurs of despair. You lie down on the hard ground, pressing your palms into the stone, tasting grit and iron, feeling the tremor of your own body. Hunger has become a constant scream. Thirst claws with every breath. Every heartbeat reminds you of fragility, of mortality, of the limits of flesh and bone. Night falls fully. The sky is black and sharp with stars. You taste dust and iron in your mouth. You see shadows where none should be. Shapes writhe in the channels. Figures crouch beside empty tanks, whispering, trembling. Some are dead, some are alive. You cannot tell which. Your own body quivers from exhaustion, dehydration, and terror. Sleep comes fitfully, haunted by visions of mud, water, hollow faces, twisting channels, voices from nowhere. Hunger and thirst become sharpened knives in your body. The settlement itself feels like it is unraveling, falling into a slow, grinding chaos that leaves you trembling, barely clinging to life. You know, deep in your chest, that the disaster has reached its peak. The settlement is fractured, bodies are failing, minds are breaking, and yet, somehow, you are still alive. You taste dust, iron, and fear. You smell sweat, dust, and decay. You hear the quiet moans of those still moving, scraping, surviving, and you understand fully, there is no mercy here. Survival is a thread, thin and fraying, and the world around you has become a place of slow, relentless suffering. You wake to a faint change in the air. The heat presses, but it carries something new, a subtle dampness, almost imperceptible, brushing against your skin. You taste dust and iron in your mouth as usual, your tongue raw, throat tight. Hunger claws at your stomach, thirst scratches at your throat. Your body trembles with exhaustion. You rise slowly, each step measured, deliberate, dragging yourself along cracked stone paths. The settlement is quieter than before, but the stillness is uneasy, a waiting before something inevitable. You move toward the largest reservoir at the edge of the settlement. The mud at the bottom is thick, sticky, cracked in sharp, uneven lines. You kneel and scrape a handful into your mouth. It tastes bitter, metallic, gritty. Your stomach twists violently. You swallow anyway. Survival is measured in these small, desperate acts now. You glance around. The channels and tanks, empty and cracked, stretch outward like veins across the settlement. You notice something faint, something that wasn't here before. A shimmer along the edge of a channel, a glint in the sun. You blink. It remains. Water. A thin trickle. Almost nothing, but enough to make your stomach tighten in hope. You follow the glint along the channel, each step slow, deliberate. Your legs shake under the weight of exhaustion. Sweat pours down your back, mixes with dust and grit. Your hands press against stone, mud, and baked clay for support. You taste iron again. You notice the faint smell of wet earth, faint but undeniable. The water has returned to the stone, moving through the channels exactly as it was designed to do. You feel a pulse of disbelief and relief. You climb carefully down into a secondary step well. The stone is cool at first, but the deeper you go, the warmth returns, the heat pressing from the walls. At the bottom, a thin channel of water runs slowly along a carved path. You kneel beside it, feeling the water with your hands. Cool, almost forgiving. You taste it, metallic and faintly sweet against the bitterness in your mouth. It is enough to keep moving, enough to draw a shallow, trembling breath. You notice shadows moving in the corners of your eyes, figures of other villagers, pale, hollow, emaciated, have discovered the water too. You nod to them, a faint acknowledgement, because no words remain in you. You follow the overflow channels back toward the settlement. Water flows in shallow streams, filling tanks slowly, methodically. You watch as the dry channels, the cracked stone, the baked earth come alive with the return of moisture. The smell of wet stone rises, faint but intoxicating after days of dust and decay. The settlement shifts. Movement becomes easier. Figures kneel, press their hands into the water, drink. Some sob quietly, disbelief heavy in their movements. You drink too, tasting metal, grit, and the faint promise of life. The return of water does not erase the suffering. You notice bodies collapsed along the edges of channels, empty vessels abandoned beside them. You see the child you passed yesterday, too weak to move, shivering in exhaustion. You know that some will not survive, even now, even with the water returning. Death has walked quietly through the settlement, and its presence lingers. You taste dust and iron, swallow slowly, trembling. You climb onto the raised platform overlooking the reservoir. Water flows steadily now, filling channels and tanks. You hear faint cries, some of relief, some of mourning. Shadows move, some alive, some impossible. The settlement is alive again, but fractured. Your body aches from hunger, thirst, and exhaustion. You feel the tremor of your own limbs, the deep ache in your joints, the hollow gnawing in your stomach. You have survived, but survival has not been gentle. Night falls. The air is cooler now, carrying the faint smell of wet stone and mud. You lie down on baked earth beside a shallow tank, tasting water that is sweet and metallic, dust and iron lingering faintly. Your body trembles, not just from exhaustion, but from relief, from disbelief. The settlement sleeps uneasily, shadows moving in corners, whispers floating across channels. You know some will not wake. You know the scars of the disaster run deep. You close your eyes. The water flows quietly through channels. The stone hums faintly under its weight, and you feel, finally, a fragile pulse of hope. The peak of suffering has passed, but the memory of hunger, of thirst, of hallucinations, of death lingers. Survival has returned, but the settlement will never be the same. You taste water, iron, dust, and hope, and in that bitter mixture you drift slowly, painfully, toward rest.
You wake to a faint, unmistakable shift in the air. Coolness, heavier than last night, drifts across the stone paths. The sky is still pale, but the wind carries the faint smell of moisture. Wet earth, damp clay, the unmistakable scent of rain arriving. Your tongue is raw, your mouth bitter with dust and iron. Your throat scratches. Hunger gnaws, though less violently now. You rise slowly, legs trembling under the weight of exhaustion. Sweat beads on your skin, dust clinging stubbornly, but the promise of water draws you forward. You move along the channels. The shallow trickles you discovered yesterday have grown, small but steady. Water murmurs faintly as it moves along carved stone, filling tanks and stepwells inch by inch. You press your hands into the stream, tasting metal, grit, and the faintly sweet tang of life returning. Your stomach twists, but not in pain. It clenches in cautious relief. Around you, villagers move carefully, tending to channels, scraping away debris, lifting vessels to drink. Faces are pale, hollow, emaciated, but alive. You nod to those you pass, acknowledging survival in a wordless ritual. Rain falls lightly at first, a thin, almost hesitant drizzle that hisses faintly as it strikes stone and clay. Dust rises and mixes with water, carrying a pungent smell of baked earth, finally softening. You lift your face, letting the droplets land on your skin, and for the first time in days you taste rain. Cold, sharp, clean. It cuts through the metallic taste in your mouth, though it does not erase it. You close your eyes, letting it wash over you. The settlement moves beneath the rain, slower now, cautious, fragile. Every step is careful, every motion measured. The larger tanks fill steadily. Channels carry water back to previously dry reservoirs. You see figures kneeling beside them, hands pressed to the water, drinking slowly, almost ritualistically. Children crawl toward shallow pools, cupping water in hands too weak to lift full vessels. Women kneel, washing faces and hands, lifting water to lips, tasting it with quiet, cautious gratitude. Men bend over channels, repairing damage, scraping stones, guiding the flow. Everyone moves with the awareness that survival has returned, but is still uncertain. The rain grows heavier, falling steadily now, drumming against rooftops, channels, stone. It soaks through the dust, splashing mud against walls, coating feet. The smell of wet earth rises sharply, intoxicating after days of baked stone and dry channels. You press your hands into the water, feeling it cold and alive against your skin. You drink from the channels, tasting mud, metal, and sweetness. Your stomach tightens in relief. Hunger still claws, but less insistently. Your body trembles with exertion and relief, sweat mixing with rain. You walk through the settlement, noticing the damage. Cracked stone, dry channels, collapsed clay vessels. Some bodies lie where they fell, eyes closed, faces pale and stiff. You taste iron in your mouth, stronger now, a reminder of the lives lost. The settlement is alive again, but the memory of suffering clings. Shadows of death linger in corners, along edges, behind steps. You shiver, not from cold, but from recognition. You survived, but you carry the weight of those who did not. You climb the raised platform near the reservoir. Water fills the channels now, flowing clean and steady. Villagers move beneath you, tending,
repairing, drinking. The rain falls in steady sheets. Dust rises and is washed away. You feel it on your face, your skin, your tongue, your throat. You taste relief, sweetness, iron, dust, and hope all at once. You notice small smiles, quiet gestures of gratitude, hands pressed in prayer. The settlement is alive, but fragile. Every step is careful, every breath measured, every thought haunted by days of suffering. Night arrives, cool and heavy. Rain continues, pattering on rooftops, stone and mud. You lie down beside a shallow channel, tasting water on your lips, letting it wash away dust, iron, and grit. Hunger is less sharp, thirst is soothed, though the echoes of both remain in your body. Around you, the settlement sleeps in uneven shifts. Some are awake, tending channels, repairing damage, checking tanks. Others are too exhausted even to move. You close your eyes, feeling the pulse of rain, the flow of water, and the slow, cautious return of life. The trauma of the past days does not leave you. Shadows linger in corners. Voices echo faintly in memory. Hunger and thirst haunt your stomach and throat. You taste water, iron, dust, and hope. You breathe in the cool, wet air and know survival is real but fragile. The settlement has returned to life, but it carries scars deeper than stone, deeper than mud, deeper than blood. You sleep slowly, cautiously, letting the rain's rhythm steady your body, steady your mind, steady your memory of suffering. You wake to the sound of steady rain, heavier now, drumming against the stone roofs, channels, and cracked tanks. The smell of wet earth is sharp, intoxicating after days of dust and desolation. Your body aches from exhaustion, hunger, and the slow trauma of surviving what others could not. Every joint is stiff, every muscle trembling. You press your palms into the stone beneath you, tasting wet grit and iron, feeling the pulse of water beneath your fingers. The settlement is alive again, but fragile, haunted by the weight of what has passed. You rise slowly, moving along channels that are now flowing steadily. Water slides over stone, mud softens, cracks are filled with small pools, each one a temporary salvation. Villagers move alongside you, emaciated, exhausted, careful with each step, each motion. You notice hands trembling as they scoop water, faces hollow, eyes glazed with fatigue and memory. Some bodies remain where death claimed them, a stark reminder that survival came at a terrible cost. You taste iron and water together, bitter and metallic, sweet and life-giving all at once.
The first repairs begin. Men lift broken clay vessels, stacking them carefully, salvaging what they can. Channels are cleared of debris, mud is smoothed, stone checked for cracks. You move with them, hands working, though your own energy is barely enough to sustain movement. Sweat mixes with rain, dust and mud clinging to your skin. Each motion reminds you of your weakness, but you do it anyway. Survival has become work, slow, painstaking, necessary. You walk to the largest reservoir. Tanks that were empty now hold water, filling slowly under the rain's rhythm. You kneel beside one and taste the water. Cool, metallic, carrying the faint sweetness of life returning. Around you, others do the same. Some silently, some whispering prayers, some weeping softly. You notice a child cupped in a woman's arms, drinking slowly, tasting the water that once would have been impossible to reach. Relief presses at your chest, heavy and fragile. The settlement is awake with motion now, though still fragile. People work in pairs, small groups, repairing channels, lifting buckets, clearing debris. You move slowly, mind sharp despite exhaustion, noting the scars left by the disaster. Some channels are cracked beyond repair, shallow pools forming in places where water used to flow freely. You see shadows of the dead in memory, their absence a weight in every corner. Hunger and thirst are less sharp now, but their echoes linger in stomachs and throats alike. By midday, the rain has eased to a steady drizzle, soaking into the earth and channels. You climb the raised platform beside the reservoir, watching the settlement below. Water flows steadily now, filling channels, pools, and tanks. Villagers move cautiously, carefully, repairing what they can, salvaging what remains. You notice hands pressed together in prayer, silent nods between survivors, cautious smiles. Recovery has begun, but fragility remains. The settlement breathes, slowly, unevenly, like a body learning to move after severe trauma. Evening falls. You lie beside a shallow tank, water lapping gently at your hands. You taste it, metallic and sweet, dust lingering faintly on your tongue. Your body aches from work, from heat, from days of hunger and thirst, from trauma. You hear movement around you, figures tending channels, filling vessels, checking stepwells. The settlement is alive, but scars remain everywhere, in stone, in mud, in air, in memory. You close your eyes, letting the rhythm of water soothe your exhaustion, your hunger, your thirst, your memory of suffering. Sleep comes slowly, unevenly, but it comes. The rain continues to fall, filling channels and reservoirs, washing dust from stone, wetting earth, nurturing life back into the settlement. You taste water, iron, dust, and relief. The trauma lingers, heavy in your chest, a reminder that survival is real, but that the world has left its mark. You drift in the rhythm of recovery, fragile, wary, alive.
You wake slowly, your body stiff, every joint aching from days of exertion, hunger, and thirst. The rain has stopped, leaving the settlement damp and glistening under a pale gray sky. Stone channels drip faintly, tanks hold water, and the smell of wet earth rises sharply from the softened mud. You taste water on your tongue, metallic and faintly sweet, yet the taste of dust, iron, and grit still lingers. Your stomach twists from hunger and trauma, though the gnawing has softened with the return of nourishment. You rise and move through the settlement. The air is heavy with the scent of wet stone, clay, and sweat. You notice the changes. Shadows of the dead remain in the corners, silent markers of those who did not survive. Channels are patched, some broken beyond repair, pools of mud and water mixing in uneven rhythms. Villagers work quietly, slowly, conserving strength, repairing, cleaning, tending small gardens, checking tanks. Their movements are careful, deliberate, haunted. You taste dust again and feel the weight of every loss pressing against your chest. You walk past the largest reservoir. Water fills it completely now, lapping gently against the edges. You kneel beside it and press your hands into the surface. Cool, smooth, tangible life. You drink slowly, tasting metal and earth, relief and fear mingling on your tongue. You watch the flow of water through channels, stepwells, and clay tanks. The settlement is alive again, but it moves carefully, fractured. The memory of collapse lingers in every footstep, every gesture, every glance. You notice others moving through the settlement, children still thin and pale, parents cautious, hands trembling as they lift vessels. Some cry quietly, remembering. Others sit silently, staring into shallow pools, eyes hollow from days without relief. Faces once familiar are etched with trauma, scarred by fear and deprivation. You taste iron and grit again, and in it, the weight of all those who did not survive. Survival is real, but it is not unmarked. By midday, the sun begins to emerge through clouds. Stone and mud begin to dry slowly. Channels gleam with water, and faint green sprouts push through the softened earth. You walk carefully, noting the delicate balance, the return of life, the persistence of hunger, the fragility of survival. You taste water again, sweet, metallic, and bitter. You carry it with you, a reminder of what was lost and what remains. The settlement moves in a quiet rhythm of recovery, cautious and deliberate. Evening comes. You climb to the raised platform beside the reservoir, watching the settlement below. Water flows steadily. Children play cautiously near shallow pools. Adults repair channels, lift vessels, and tend the land. You see hands pressed in prayer, eyes glimmering with tears, faint smiles returning. Shadows of the dead linger in memory, but the living continue. You taste dust, iron, water, and faint relief. The settlement breathes slowly, unevenly, carrying both trauma and survival within it.
You lie beside a shallow tank, letting the water lap gently against your hands. You taste water and grit, iron and sweetness, life and memory all mingled. The rain has stopped, but the channels are full, the reservoirs hold, and life continues. Yet you know that the scars remain, in stone, in mud, in water, in memory, in the quiet tremor of every body that survived. You close your eyes, feeling exhaustion, relief, grief, and a faint pulse of hope. Sleep comes slowly, unevenly, and in dreams you see the channels, the stepwells, the reservoirs, the faces of the dead and the living. Hunger and thirst, fear and despair, loss and survival, they linger, intertwined. You are alive. The settlement is alive. But both of you carry the memory of what was lost, the trauma of days when survival hung by the thinnest of threads. You drift in this fragile rhythm, tasting water, dust, iron, relief, and sorrow, carrying both the weight of history and the fragile pulse of life forward.